Okay, so we always do what, right? Like first thing I end up doing every single day, right, is I go after to the day's trade, right? We need to assess the assets, right, for the next day, right? And so we need to identify levels, right? And so, if you've been watching, the markets over the past, couple weeks, right? What's really ended up going on, right, is we were inside a potential three candle model, right, back here because this is candle one, right?
Hmm.
Candle two closed inside. We know candle three will open low to expand, right? But the reality is it was really a three candle model with a parent candle because you can see that this candle and really this candle, right, are actually containing the three candle model, right? Because we
Mm,
had we
they had
had
been. Hmm.
right. So something G always is literally something like it's grained in my head is right. Market always moves from soup to soup, right?
Yep.
What does that mean? That means the market's right. There's three reasons the markets move, right? You know these three reasons, yes, right? The first is to hunt buy side and sell side liquidity, right? The
Hmm.
second is to rebalance
To rebalance. Yep.
inefficiencies, and the third is to rebalance the equilibrium, right? And what G taught us, right, and that Truth is like really good at like explaining, right, is it's all about X range, right? But the question is, what X are we referring to, right? And it's referring to the previous range, and I'm not sure if it's the given range, dealing range. I don't really use those terms, but it's simple like this, right? Okay, so the market's moving, right? And we're always looking at for current price. So the first thing I do is I look where did the market first soup or manipulate, right? And so for me, I draw it here, right? Because in this price action, we souped and closed back inside, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that means that we're going to be continuing in this direction until we soup again, right? And you can
Hmm.
see that, right? What ends up happening, right? Here's the reality of the big picture, right? We're in consolidation here, correct?
Hmm.
This down closed candle got closed above, okay? And so what did this do? On the weekly time frame, this validated us a
Order block.
bullish order block. Exactly. And in consolidation, we know that according to what GxT teaches us is you can't and also we know this from G and everyone, right? You can't reverse from consolidation. You can only manipulate, right, or rebalance. And so you
Hmm.
can see here that that's what happened here. So then we begin to expand, right? So obviously my target is these highs. Okay. So that was
Absolutely.
right. So
Yep.
exactly. It's really easy to see that really clear, right? Okay. So let's get into it further, right? We dropped down to the daily. And yesterday I chose to not participate, which was a really good trade. But so then last night, right? Let's talk about for today. Well, let's just keep it really, really simple, right? And how do we do that, right? Okay. So we take previous day and we mark out high and low, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And then what do we need to do? Right? We need to find EQ of that range, right? So I draw it out and I mark previous to EQ, right? Okay. Why? Because if we know
Do
that
you do
regard
that on every asset?
absolutely, and I'm going to show you exactly why. So it's simple, right? EQ of previous day. Why? Because we know, right? Market always must rebalance. Well,
Yep.
if we're going to go down, it's going to rebalance to EQ and dump. If it doesn't, it's going to rebalance and then right. And then we can see here, right? We mark previous day low, right? Because that's either going to be the trigger, draw, etc. for the highs, right? So we do that there. Then we do the same thing, right? On NQ, and then we do the same thing on ES, right? Okay, so that's just daily. So we keep it simple. We screenshot that, we post it. Okay, now we start to develop, right? Framework because the reality is like your whatever model that you're learning that you're refining, right? It's like
Hmm.
a model, and this is what guys miss is like a model is no good. Like guys that are struggling, they want guys to share their screen because they don't fully have framework. They're looking for a pattern, right? And they believe the 45 open high, et cetera, whatever it is like they're looking for something specific, like an image, right? Because they don't actually have fundamental framework and a reasoning that's driving higher time frame narrative, right? So how do we do that? Okay, for me, it's like I hop to the 4 hour. Okay, and then this is where things, for me, this is something I've been practicing and looking at, and I don't back test anything, but like Truth's back testing 13, 14 hours and stuff. The reality is like instead of that, I spend 20 hours, taking notes on like GxT stuff, or like you can see I have the 2610 channel. It's like I literally spent like, 6 hours on every one of True Swap videos because that for me
Yeah.
that's better than back testing. So in this case, right, it's like this can be a little tricky. It's like how do we find the range for tomorrow, right? Well, you can see here and right that I had this marked out as key level prior to yesterday, okay? Because these are relative equal highs, right? But what I
Sure.
noticed last night is, look, price expands, right? And we stop short, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Why does price do that, right? And the reality is because if, right, if this was target, we would have taken it, right?
Hmm.
But we didn't. And Truth even said he cut early because he anticipated, like, that we weren't really going to get there. And the reason we didn't is because we took it in the overnight session, right? Okay, so sitting down
Yeah.
at the charts last night, I need to build narrative. Why did we take it in the overnight session, right? Well, in my opinion, it's because we're anticipating a potential open high, right? Now, where are we anticipating this open high? Well, we're at a key level, right? So just like I showed you, with the trade, or I went over in my previous video of the trade for today. It's like we stop short of a key level until a specific time, and then we end up taking that key level because that is the start of a reversal, or that's a start, as GxT would say, of a new phase of price, right?
Newest days. Yep. Yep.
So okay, so for me, it's like, how do we find a point of interest, right? How do we find a point of interest? Because for me, something that I now understand with framework is like, we must establish a key level first before we can even hunt for a model, a setup, because ultimately, right, it's all about time and how it relates to price, which means, like, we're going to need to find a key level to wait for time to engage with, right? That's what truth is like. And I realize now, it's like I missed it for so long. It's like we must first establish a key level, right, or a higher time frame PD array, and then wait for time to align and run into it instead of being early. You know what I mean? That's where we incur
100%.
losses, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, so I drop on the 4 hour, and
Or they
again,
double tap it or
right.
whatever. But
So
yeah, go ahead,
I'm
sir.
so yeah, so 4 hour, we can easily see here, right? Daily open right here. Okay. So this is what I'm looking at. Okay. And I'm going to show you here. Let's go to the 4 hour. Again, why am I looking at all assets? Because it's important to see how they relate to one another. Okay. So here's
Did
4 hour.
you long or short today?
I shorted. So I'm going to show
Okay.
you here. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and I'll show. Yeah. So okay. So here's 4 hour, right? So again, we just keep it simple, right? We've got our previous day high, previous day low, EQ. All right. But we need more than that, right? Because right, market moves soup to soup. And for me, it's like I've really been building a bias and, like, understanding of narrative. So, like, right, like, let's just look at this previous price action. Like, what's going on, right? We want to walk price all the way through so we have strong narrative, right? We get an OB built, and then price opens low into this OB, rebalances, right? Inside of a what? Inside a PD array, right? A fair value gap, whatever, this BISI, right? And then we expand, right? And we stop here, and then we end up expanding. Okay, so for me, the first thing I always establish is, again, where's soup? Because where soup occurs, I know I then only need to look for soup on the other side. Okay. And this is where it's tricky, is because, look, these candles printed in the overnight session, right? So it could be a little confusing about range, but here's the thing. In my opinion, I speculated that this candle only, because it was the one that opened into our PD array, right? This daily SIBI, that this candle and anything in the overnight session that was higher would probably most likely be manipulation. Okay, so if I believe that, right, then if that's manipulation, that can't be part of the range. But I already know this is. So all I need to do is take this previous turtle soup low, and then this technically would be soup overnight and then come back in the range. But I don't need to speculate and wait for that. I can view the correct range, or so what I think, by trying to target what the correct candle is. And you can see here that in doing so, right, all I end up doing, right, is I end up getting EQ. Okay, so for me, I take that sucker and I hit it with a key level. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with ES. Okay, and what I'm end up doing more and more is, when I draw these key levels out, I'm seeing where do they align, right? Where do they align? Okay, so we do this for ES. Okay. And then we also do the same thing for YM. Okay. Now, if this is YM's range, again, keep it simple, G. It's all about EQ. That's all we need. So we take this is the previous manipulated high, right? Before price moves down. Okay. And then once price moves down, we just look for where's price manipulated again. Okay, good. So when we do that, right, what ends up happening? We end up getting soup on both sides. So if the market moves from soup to soup, that means this must do what? It has to rebalance. So we're going to take this high and this low, and we're going to get EQ. And you can see that this actually already rebalanced there during the day. But again, if we're looking for open high and shorts, I want to establish this level. Now notice, right, we've got previous day EQ here, and also this stop short. So is it potentially a good key level to say that we would manipulate up there before, going any lower. In my opinion, I would say, I could say yes, right? So we're going to draw this out, or this is what I do, right? And I established that key level. All right. So now I'm done. Okay. Now I'm done, because the reality is now I'm going to wait for the morning. And when I come into the morning, right, I'm going to watch this key level. So I'm going to show you right now. So what I end up doing is I just leave 4 hour up on everything. Okay. So now I'm going to drop this video. Okay. And then just bear with me for a second here. It's this one. And then I'll switch screens for you. Change stream. Here we go. All right. You can see that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So that's what ends up happening. Okay. And then now let me just back this up so it's less confusing for you. Leave the replay. Okay, here we go. And then let's go replay mode, start new. And then what is this for right here? Boom. Okay. So this is where we were going at coming into the morning. Okay. And so I know I'm kind of spoiling it right now. My bad, dude. Okay, there we go. Okay. So in
Don't
the morning,
worry about me.
yeah, no, it's all good. Okay. So look, check it out. In the morning, okay. For me, I come in with the 4 hour on my one side, right? And normally and I explained this in my video, but normally I have that other chart. I have it up on my big screen so I can watch YM. And the reason I took a loss today was because I wasn't watching YM and I was early, but I'll explain this. So anyways, 1, 5, 15 in 4 hour. Okay. So let's talk about coming into today in the morning. What's the first thing we need to look at, right? We're looking for any sort of, right, change in state of delivery. Now, why is that? Okay, you don't know this, but according to GxT, right, and his driver pairing video, and which I have printed on my wall, so I see it every day, right? We can establish that if a CSD, right, has occurred prior to a driver, right? Driver being 9:30, any sort of news, 8:30, etc., right? If we have change in state of delivery prior to driver, it must always be driver continuation. Okay, how does that help us? Right?
On what
Because
timeline?
what? So on the
On what
50,
timeline?
so right, it depends, right? Are you willing to trust a 15-minute change in state of delivery, a 1 hour, right? So it
Yeah.
depends. You would have to, because I practice this GXT, I have conviction for certain time frames based on how price action looks. So for instance, I always start with the 15-minute time frame. So I come in the morning prior to market open, and the very first thing I do is I always, when we are in this sort of situation, mark out Asia high, because I have been like burned by not setting this up, because it's like you'd be dumb not listening to G's, breaker theory.
Oh
So
yeah.
like,
Mhm.
so anyways, I always come in and I mark Asia high, right? Because it's right above midnight, right? Now the reality is are we overextended? Absolutely. So this already gives me narrative for coming in, right, to the morning. So you can see here, I didn't have this up because it's spoiling it. So this is where I was
No
at
worries.
coming into this morning. Okay. And we can see here that currently with price, um, right here, we are at 9 o'clock. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look. Do we have a change in state of delivery prior to 9 o'clock? Right, and you can see here that on the 15-minute time frame, we do, right? Barely here, right? But also we got the CSD up here. Okay.
Okay.
But for me, because 9:30 is risky, um, I have been tending to wait a little longer or look higher time frame. So for me, that's what I did today, right? Because I wanted to have more clarity. So I went to the hourly. Okay, and this is where things for me got good, right? What do we have? We have a super clear potential OB, right? But at 9 o'clock, you can see this candle, and we'll play it through. You can see what ends up happening, and I'll slow this down so we don't rip through it, right? Right here. You can see that we get the change in state of delivery here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what does that mean? We have a CSD, right? This is 8 o'clock prior to driver open. So now I know on the hourly, right? On the hourly at least, the only thing that must happen is a rebalance, right? Because this is the way the framework works, right? Once we have a CSD, right? You can see this is where the CSD occurred. Rebalance, right? CSD. But once that occurs, because we know order flow has changed to bearish, right? Then the only
Okay.
thing, because we can't reverse from that, the only thing we can do is rebalance. So like if I had, let's say I went in with 1 micro, right? The reality is you could enter with a limit here and throw your stop up here, right? Because this OB should never be disrespected, because we already had A change in state of delivery until when,
Mm.
right? When can this OB get invalidated? After the draw has been met, right? And because I'm short bias and I believe the draw is down here, right? That would give me conviction that this OB is safe, right? So I wait, right? And you can see here, we get this strong closure, right? But look, where are we at with time, right? We are still not even at 9:15. So we wait, right? And I'm going to show you here, right? We wait. Okay. And then we rebalance. Okay. And we can see what's really going on here is we got the CSD on the 15-minute. You see that right here? And
Mhm.
then what's happening here? This, even though this is an open low, it's a trap because look, it's rebalancing to what? Back to this OB, right? This 15-minute OB. Okay. So
Yep.
now I feel confident that 30 needs to open high for us to take a trade, right? So I wait and then we get 30 here. Okay. Now 30 initially rebalances open low. Okay. But what I'm paying attention to is I'm watching ES. Okay. Because we need SMT manipulation. Okay.
Yep.
And so the first thing I do is I draw this high. Right. And you can easily see that we end up SMTing this sucker right away. Right. Boom.
Yep.
And so initially I want to get short. And so I pulled the trigger. Right. Because we've got SMT. Right. We already have the change in state and we rebalanced. Right. You can
And then
see
a
we
change in
rebalanced
state.
this.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then we get the closure here, right?
Yep.
And so I enter and I add, right? Stop up here, right? And the reality is, as you can see, by being early, this all looks really good, right? But you're going to see here why I'm early is because the reason I needed to wait for 45 because we bounce here, and then I end up in drawdown too much for my own liking, and so I close out, you know. And why did I incur the loss? I incurred the loss because I was early on 30. Because why? Because did we get turtle soup in the correct PO3? We did not. This candle, right? We didn't really get that, right? And so 45, watch this. Okay, we wait for 45. Okay, now by waiting for 45, the model begins to print perfectly. Okay, and it goes like this, right? 45 opens high, right? Sweeping what? Previous 15-minute range high. That's G's 15-minute model. But in this case, it's
Yep.
also sweeping all this other stuff. And then we get to change in state of delivery. So if, like normally, I was trying to take the soup here. If I took the soup, stop here, I'm good to go, right? And then we end up dumping, right? And you can see here that we end up rebalancing where back to the opening price, right? So we rebalance there. My mouse is frozen. Give me a second.
You're
Um,
good.
and then we end up, right, continuing lower. And then 10 o'clock is what? 10 o'clock is continuation, right? So what happens? It
Checking
happens right
opens low
here.
high.
10 o'clock. No, it does not open low. This is where people get confused. Yes, right here it opens
Open
low
high.
into this fair value
Right.
gap. But the
Yep.
reality is that's not what's going on. Where does manipulation occur relative to the opening price? This is like truth right there. Boom, right? And the reality is as I used to think, it's here. This is manipulation, but it's not because look, where's soup occurring? Right? This candle, right? Boom, right? So this is the rebalance, and that's where I'm looking for manipulation. If I'm short bias, I'm not looking for manipulation low. I'm looking for the rebalance point up here.
Mhm.
And then that
Yep.
occurs, right? And then we get the CSD, which we already had. So now we know what? Now we know we flush, right? And then so then we just speed this thing up, you know, and we watch on the 5 here and the 15.
So where was your entry?
I told you my initial entry was at the top of 30. That's why I got stopped out. But I would have
I
taken
know.
45 and I would have taken
Oh, and then
10
you watched
o'clock.
the rest?
No,
I see.
I walked away. I walked away.
I see.
But
Okay.
I'm saying so. But here's where it
Yeah,
gets
yeah, yeah.
even better. Here's where it gets better. So check it out. We sell off to daily open right here, right?
Yep.
Okay, right above my key level. Okay. So does that mean my speculation was incorrect? I mean, initially you would say yes, but what I come to find out after doing my analysis earlier is this, dude. Check it out. Right, that's our key level. Okay, and then I'll speed this up because so it's at our 1 o'clock, so 4 o'clock. Right. What is the model and how does it print? Right. It's always time, right, related to price. Right. So just like we're looking for a key level for price to open into, the same thing must occur here. Right. We stopped short by 3 points. That's not a mistake. That's the algorithm. Right.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
we right. So because that's our point of rebalance of EQ, because we keep it simple, we know target must hit that. So we consolidate, right? And we end up consolidating until 3. Right, here we go. I think it's it's one
No,
more.
it's 4 after hours.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No, that's
mm,
right. we consolidate here. It's right here. Right here. One more. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, I was
Yeah,
listening to you. Oh, I
yeah,
was
yeah,
there
yeah.
for
And
that.
then boom, right here, right? So you caught the end of that. Yeah, exactly. So then at 4 o'clock, boom, market opens low, taps our fucking key level, and then we expand. And it's that
And it
simple,
goes
right?
back
Like
up.
it's
Yeah.
that simple. And so tonight, when I'm gonna do my charting, I'm gonna stop this recording. I'm gonna record my charting, but I'm gonna do the same thing, and you'll see how easy it is. So let me stop this.